Cops harassed her at a traffic stop, but she was the judge who could end their careers. The blood trickles from Judge Naomi Ellison's temple in a thin, warm line, as Officer Jason Rudd presses cold steel to her head beside a two-lane shoulder outside Briarwood, Michigan. The late sun is turning cornfields into molten gold, and somewhere far off, a freight horn moans like a warning. She keeps her palms open and level, breath measured, registry of facts already clicking into place the way it has for 20 years on the federal bench. You asked for a story of power unmasked, so stay with me, because what happens next will show you exactly how a quiet black woman with a spine of iron dismantles a machine that thought it could grind her to dust. Type 1 in the comments if you believe respect isn't a courtesy, it's a right. Naomi isn't in robes today. Jeans, a slate sweater, hair tied back for the drive to see her sister Simone on the edge of town. She chose the Camry over the Mercedes because the Camry is invisible, a judge's favorite trick when she wants to move through the world unseen. But invisibility has a cost in certain zip codes, and when the blue and red lights bloom in her rear view for a speed she knows she didn't break. She signals, drifts to the gravel, rolls the window down, and places both hands where the camera should see them. Officer Jason Rudd approaches left, jaw tight, habitually contemptuous. Officer Kyle Mercer flanks right, the echo, the laugh track, the one who says exactly after every bad idea. "License and registration now," Rudd says, slow like she's hard of understanding. Naomi asks, calm as a lake, "May I know the reason for the stop, officer?" And the smirk says everything. 40 and a 35? He lies without blinking. You've heard this beat before. She moves for her purse at half speed, shoulder first, elbow, fingers. Mercer barks, "Weapon!" And the world detonates into noise and asphalt. They wrench her from the seat. Her temple kisses the doorframe on the way out. The cuffs bite. The script writes itself. Resisting, failure to comply, something about a bulging purse. If you've ever watched an encounter curdle from routine to dangerous because of tone, power, and skin, you already know Act 1. Naomi has tried hundreds of civil rights cases. She knows how racism wears a badge and takes minutes. She also knows the strategic value of silence. She doesn't flash her federal ID, doesn't name the courthouse where her portrait hangs. She watches. Details are evidence with pulse. Rudd's hand rides her shoulder blade down to the small of her back like he owns the space. Mercer's laugh is a high click when he finds a leather wallet and says, "Nice to see your people thriving." A passing sedan slows. A teenager raises a phone. Rudd shouts them off, but not before Naomi catches the plate. 3 letters, 3 numbers, memory like a trap. Remember that. Witnesses matter when truth needs legs. The Briarwood station looks like it paused in 1978 and forgot to exhale. Humming fluorescence, flooring scuffed past forgiveness, a Confederate flag mug pretending to be nostalgia on a desk that should have been retired with that mug. The whites-only plaque on the wall is history, Mercer tells a rookie, which is how some men say threat. They book Naomi, deny the phone call, say the system is slow because computers are acting up. Chief Alan Whitaker, salt and pepper, barrel chest, loyalty priced at whatever Victor Langford is paying, steps in with a smile that didn't get the memo. "We'll get to you when we can," he says, and rolls that "we" over her like a steamroller. Inside the holding cell, Tasha, late 20s, lash lines smeared from tears she refuses to let fall, grabbed out of a boutique with a paid receipt still warm. Marcus, 19, apron still on, arrested while waiting for his mom in the grocery lot because loitering looks like crime when you're you. Naomi introduces herself simply. Naomi, no honorifics. She listens. She asks questions like scalpels. The patterns show up fast. Oak Ridge, Briarwood's historically black neighborhood, getting slammed with stops, citations, code tickets for grass too tall, porch paint too dull, hedges too hedgy. And everywhere the names repeat, Rudd, Mercer, Whitaker. Behind them the bench stamp of County Judge Samuel Drake, who never met a dismissal he couldn't grant if it kept certain people certain places. Officer Daniel Ortiz, a new face with an old soul, walks Naomi from holding to the booking desk. His fingers freeze above the terminal when he reads her federal ID and the color drains from his knuckles. "Your Honor," slips out like a prayer. He sprints to Whitaker's office and the station mood flips like a bad coin. Chairs scrape, mugs vanish, the vintage plaque disappears, and suddenly Naomi is "ma'am" and "so sorry for the misunderstanding." Judge Samuel Drake materializes in an expensive suit as if teleported by privilege, signet ring gleaming like a seal on rotten parchment. "Judge Ellison, an unfortunate mix-up," he purrs, mouth smiling while the eyes calculate. "Let's keep this between professionals," he says. "Here's where you pay attention. Naomi doesn't raise her rank. She asks for her property back, asks to use the phone because her cell died, and calls her clerk David, saying 20 words that look like calendar logistics but mean start a quiet federal file now. Chess, not checkers. Naomi drives to Simone's house off a gravel road that chirps under tires. Simone is community organizer, spreadsheets and megaphone in one person, half "I told you so" and half "I'm right here." She opens a binder. West Oak, documentation. 3 years of receipts, sworn statements, time-stamped photos, maps layered like sediment. Naomi leans over the laptop and sees the red dots of property sales, all below market, all to Langford Development LLC or a cousin of it. The pressure pattern is textbook. Harass, fine, lien, foreclose, relocate. And the pipeline is clean. Harassment by Rudd and Mercer, rubber stamp by Drake, checks cashed by Whitaker through a brother-in-law consulting firm called Sentinel Civic. If you think corruption wears a trench coat and a fedora, let me introduce you to QuickBooks and group chats. At Judge Drake's house that night, the old guard huddles: Whitaker, Rudd, Mercer, and Victor Langford, the man who calls displacement activation on glossy decks. They worry. They toast. They decide. Anonymous sources pop a headline before breakfast in the Briarwood Gazette: "Federal judge detained after erratic driving." An accompanying smear suggests she tried to pull rank at the station. Whitaker's quote is pure corn syrup: "Sad day when respected officials behave poorly." Drake frames it as no one above the law while dialing a friend at the state to plant whispers about stability. Langford tells his PR to float federal overreach op-eds. If you've ever been slimed, you know this move. Comment "I see it" if you've seen it. Naomi doesn't flinch. She schedules a full medical exam at Briarwood Community Hospital. Blood tox clean, wrist abrasions documented, bruise charted. The teenager's footage, secured through Simone's network, lands on an encrypted drive. She meets civil rights attorney Damon Reed in a cramped office miles away, so Drake's network can't smell it. On Reed's wall, 23 dead files from Briarwood alone, all versions of "we had witnesses until they didn't." He reads Simone's binder and smiles in that tired way people smile when they finally see a linchpin. "I've never had a federal judge as a fact witness," he says. That changes the math. The retaliation arrives like winter. Simone's community center gets a stack of emergency code violations that weren't there yesterday. Tasha is fired after 2 officers informally chat with her boss about reliability. Marcus is arrested again, this time selling weed without weed, and Judge Drake sets bail like punishment for poverty. A dark sedan parks outside Simone's house. A brick says "mind your business," and the cops log it as "kids probably." Power always tests whether fear will do the cleanup. Naomi writes everything down. Naomi meets quietly with the state AG's office, Deputy AG Lawrence Chen and investigator Monica Patterson, who already have a thin file labeled Briarwood, pattern but not enough meat to hunt. They admit pressure. They ask for proof that can't burn. Naomi nods. She has another meeting that night at a well-lit public lot. Officer Ortiz, hat brim low, heart high. "Not all of us," he says. He describes population adjustment emails, Oak Ridge arrest quotas, dashboard cam clips lost, but not gone. He wants protection. Naomi promises witness channels that move and don't leak. If you've ever wondered whether one honest person inside a bad building matters, here's your answer. Yes, and then some. Naomi plays a move that looks like retreat. She issues a formal recusal from any Briarwood-adjacent matters, citing appearance of bias, then feeds, through friends who know how to plant and walk away, a trade press item that DOJ will prioritize urban civil rights work this quarter. Drake, Whitaker, and Langford exhale too soon. The bugs Naomi's marshals, tucked in their favorite rooms, start collecting trophies. In Drake's paneled study over 18-year scotch, they reminisce about Old Man Wilson, the first black doctor, and laugh at the 17th health violation. They joke about contempt fines until a man sells to stop bleeding. Whitaker brags about bonuses when arrest numbers spike on Oak Ridge. Langford says 30 days to demolition because investors hate waiting. Then they talk about a community organizer named Johnson who had a brake failure the week after he pulled affidavits together. If you're keeping score, that's conspiracy plus a cold wind blowing somewhere none of us want to stand. Naomi pulls an emergency federal injunction through a colleague judge because her own name can't sign it now. Freezing demolitions, liens, and code seizures tied to Oak Ridge pending civil rights review. Confusion is immediate and delicious. Drake snarls, "What investigation?" And Langford says, "Contain it," while Whitaker starts thinking with fists. Ortiz's next message is all caps under the caution. "They're coming for you." Whitaker has Rudd and Mercer check out an unmarked, load a kit, test comms, and whisper, "Accident," like it's a plan. Naomi shifts to endgame. She chooses the Wilson house, the boarded-up Victorian at Oak Ridge's edge that should have been a museum, and instead collects dust. Marshals in the tree line. 4 silent cameras in the parlor. She parks in the circular drive and lets word leak that she's meeting an informant there. Rudd and Mercer arrive like men who believe the town is their holster. They sweep their lights, enter without knocking, and find Naomi standing in a sun-bleached square of light on buckled floorboards. "Evening, officers," she says. Rudd drops the sarcasm like a weight. "Trespassing," he says. Mercer blocks the door, hand near his gun. Naomi names the conspiracy out loud as if reading it into the record. Police quotas on Oak Ridge. Chief's family, consulting checks, judge's stamp on liens and evictions. Langford's donations that look like invoices. Every word records. Rudd smiles with no warmth and steps too close. Breath ash and arrogance. "People who push," he murmurs, "have accidents on dark roads." Mercer twitches. Naomi keeps her voice even. "Is that what Judge Samuel Drake and Victor Langford agreed? That my car should leave a curve tonight?" The silence is a confession waiting for sound. Rudd breaks first. He lifts the weapon and places it against her temple so gently it's obscene. "Not so high and mighty now, are you?" he whispers, and explains the narrative they polished on the drive over. Agitated federal judge, trespassing at night, tragic miscommunication. You know this tune. We all do. The camera knows it too. "Federal marshals now," Naomi says, and the house explodes into lawful noise. Windows burst inward. The commands are clean. Rudd is disarmed before the echo fades. Mercer bolts and eats dirt 2 yards off the porch. Across Briarwood, the warrants wake the town like sunrise. Marshals and FBI at the station, the courthouse, Langford's glass box. Whitaker barricades in his office and tries to burn paper. 3 younger officers refuse. He learns what it feels like when loyalty expires. Judge Drake is pulled over 6 miles out with a go bag and an envelope of offshore wiring instructions, labeled with the kind of bland name criminals think is camouflage. At Langford's HQ, a shredder chews until an agent yanks the cord. Langford demands a private conversation, offers charity, then influence, then cash, 1, 5, 10 million, then threatens. Naomi tells him justice isn't a vending machine and leaves him staring at a future he can't purchase. Naomi walks the jail that night. Marcus is there, eyes dulling at fluorescent speed. They hand him papers and watch the lights come back on. Tasha meets her at the community center the next morning with trembling hands and steady voice. Damon Reed files employment discrimination charges that force her old boss to preserve every email where, on background, cops coach them to let her go. Ortiz meets federal witness protection like a man stepping across a river he's been drowning in. "If you think heroes look like posters, look again." Mostly they look like someone choosing a scar on purpose. The news breaks before noon. 15 arrests, including Whitaker for civil rights conspiracy and evidence tampering, Drake for corruption, obstruction, and flight risk, Langford for fraud and conspiracy to deprive rights under color of law. The images beam national. Whitaker in cuffs under a banner that now reads, "Community Policing, under review," Drake blinking behind tinted windows. Langford shouting about misunderstandings, as if that word can blot out a decade. Oak Ridge residents gather in front of Simone's center. And for the first time in years, the police cars that roll by don't change posture on the sidewalk. 6 months pass, and Briarwood looks different under the same sky. The sign outside the station says, "Under new leadership," with a state oversight seal. Cadets run morning drills in mixed lines, and no one calls diversity optics to the wrong coffee mug anymore. Whitaker pleads on a package that will take him into retirement inside a fence. Rudd and Mercer trade bravado for plea agreements and cooperation memos stamped like repentance. Drake sits without bail after a judge from 3 counties over reads the flight folder and laughs without humor. Langford's bankruptcy submits glossy renderings as exhibits of hubris. Oak Ridge gets a different project. Restoration grants, historical markers, a youth legal clinic where Marcus now volunteers on Tuesdays because autumn tuition has a row in Naomi's checkbook. Simone's center hums again. Tasha runs programming, her laughter anchored by purpose. Naomi stands before the Senate Judiciary Committee to answer the cleanest dirty question. Did she overstep? "I took an oath," she says, voice level, "and I will not let it mean only what is comfortable." Some nod, some purse lips. 3 weeks later, the vote squeaks to yes. In a quiet moment, she drives back to Briarwood and parks beside the Wilson house, now scaffolded for preservation. A plaque reading, "Dr. Elijah Wilson Home, Community Healer, 1943-1991. A little boy on a bike circles, stops and asks if she's the judge from TV. She tells him she's from around, that he should wear a helmet, that he can be anything that breaks something ugly and builds something better. He nods like a verdict. You asked for the discovery moment, how the officers learn who stands before them. It happens twice. First at the station, when Ortiz whispers, "Your Honor," and Whitaker's face cracks like paint. Status shock systems built on guessing who matters. But the true discovery lands later in the parlor with the gun. Rudd finally understands she isn't powerful because she's a judge. She's powerful because she is prepared. Because she refused to blink, to bark, to break. Because her calm is the floor under 100 frightened feet. Authority can be printed on a card. Power is what remains when the card is denied and you're still standing. If this story hit a nerve, it's because you know someone like Naomi, the auntie who will not bend the truth to survive it, the sister who keeps receipts, the neighbor who shows up with coffee and a camera. Systems don't collapse because one person knocks. They collapse because lots of people push where the hinges rust. Ortiz chose conscience. Simone chose the long ledger. Damon Reed kept the light on. Tasha and Marcus stood tall when retaliation called at midnight. And Naomi did what leaders do. She used what she had to make room for people who didn't. That's the work. That's the win. Replay the first image now. Blood, gun, gravel. Run it forward to the last image. Plaque, scaffold, a kid on a bike. That's the distance we travel when a community refuses to be small. If you believe equality shouldn't depend on introductions, drop a 1. If you've ever filmed, testified, documented, or just stayed to watch so someone wouldn't be alone, tell your story below. It matters. And if you're new here, we tell these stories every week. Not to wallow, but to weld. Like, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs a reminder that quiet strength can shake a town loose from its bad habits.